Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the CNT podcast. My name is Thomas Terrio, and I am here with.
Hi guys, it's Eli Burns.
He is back again. We are so grateful again to you for coming back.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure to be on here.
So, Eli, you might have noticed Eli hasn't been on in a couple of weeks, and because of that, I've missed out on a bet that we made. This was off air, but I made a promise, and my Avalanche were playing his Kraken a couple weeks ago. I get the win Stanley Cup Finals, but debt is a debt and it still needs to be paid. So I would like to formally apologize to Eli and to the Seattle Kraken fan base because despite my inclusion into your fan base, like they are my second favorite hockey team, I still picked the Avs to win. I was wrong. They lost in 7 games where they promptly lost the Stars the next series. But whatever, that's fine. My point being is, I was sorry. I'm sorry. I was wrong. We good?
Apology accepted.
All right. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, let us get on into this episode. Today, me and Eli are going to be discussing some of the biggest what if scenarios in MLB history. What would have happened if these moves weren't made or these events didn't happen? Eli, you want to go first since you're not the regular timer here?
All right, I know we should start with the obvious, but I won't. Mine is, what if the Dodgers stayed in Brooklyn instead of moving to Los Angeles? Any thoughts, Tommy?
Yeah, West Coast baseball doesn't exist to the extent that it does today
Definitely. And
because the Dodgers are first and then the Giants. Correct me if I'm wrong.
they moved at the same time.
They moved at the same time. So can we go with the grander assumption of neither of them move? Is that okay?
Well, the Giants
Because if
were
the
actually
Giants move, I think it still becomes a big deal
the
because the
Giants,
Giants still had star power.
yeah, the Giants were
And
planning on moving to Minnesota around the time the Dodgers were approached them.
yeah, so let's expand on this scenario here, okay?
Yeah.
The Dodgers stay put, and the Giants either move to Minnesota or stay in New York. Okay. In that scenario, West Coast baseball doesn't exist, or at least isn't nearly as developed as it is today. Because the reason that it was able to build up so much, the reason they saw success, and we saw an eventual 4 teams in California, one in Arizona, and one in Seattle, is the fact that the Dodgers and Giants brought to the West Coast an immense amount of star power with your
Yeah.
Robinsons, your Mazes, those kinds of people. That legacy was just there to begin with. So if you don't do that, you're probably going to end up seeing an expansion team like the 70s or 80s in
I
California.
honestly,
There's gonna be one. It would probably be much larger expansion.
Ivor the
Tampa, where you'd see Tampa get a franchise earlier because like you have to balance out the conferences. So you would see like an LA, a San Francisco, and a Seattle because that's what happened in real life. Like eventually those 3 teams would get the main ones. You would have to see it balanced out where Miami comes in early, Tampa comes in early, and maybe DC gets a team. Montreal still exists.
yeah,
That one's a fun one.
yeah. My another one could have been that the Washington Senators moved to LA if the Giants moved to Minnesota.
Which you wonder how that works because how much support are they going to gain in a in a really non-baseball market at the time? And that we're talking like the 50s Washington Senators who were not good, if I remember correctly.
The motto was first in war, first in peace, last in the American League.
Yeah, so the Washington Senators, we're looking at I mean, yeah, no, you're not doing it. We're not doing that. So that I do like that one. That's a really fascinating one.
Another one could be that the MLB observes the then 18 Pacific Coast League and all its teams.
Yeah. And what does that do?
That well, for one, the MLB would have more teams than today, and some teams in some non-MLB markets such as Sacramento, Portland.
San
Maybe
Antonio's in
Vancouver.
there.
What?
San Antonio would probably be included then because again you have to balance back out
Maybe
so like
Vancouver as well.
yeah. I think it leads to a lot of interesting expansion theories as to like where does the league go if they don't move to Cali in the 50s when it seemed like everybody was in on baseball, right?
Yeah.
I do like that one. I like that one. For my first one, I got a bunch of them that are trades that either went through that shouldn't have, or trades that could have gone through but didn't, things like that. Okay.
Gotcha.
So for 13 games, Ryan Sandberg was a Philly. In the early 80s, Ryan Sandberg was a Philly for 13 games before he was traded to the Cubs. Okay.
Hmm.
Eli, so I just have some notes written down on my phone. Oh, tell me about the 1983 World Series.
That was the Orioles and the Phillies. Baltimore won handily in 5 games, and neither team would really be competitive afterwards.
Tell me what happens if Ryan Sandberg is on that Phillies team.
Then I think either the Phillies win it or they lose in 7.
Also, what happens to the Cubs? Like the
Then
Cubs
they
are a very different team because of it. Do they
then
ship off Greg Maddux earlier?
they they might, but they definitely don't win the division in 1984.
Do they ship off Greg Maddux earlier? What happens like as you move on into the 90s, like a Sammy Sosa, does he actually come around?
I maybe they could have gotten maybe a young Randy Johnson or something.
Yeah, use those pieces for like a young Randy Johnson, or maybe, I don't know. My question though, like the bigger thing was, is the Phillies like where Philly was a city that lacked a title for so long,
Yeah. I
and
definitely
then they could have gotten it right there, and like it would have been. I mean, because the Phillies won what World Series besides '08 have the Phillies won?
1980.
So they win in 80 and 83. That's the beginning of a dynasty. Like that's where you could
Mm,
start building like the foundation of a dynasty and really like cementing that home.
yeah,
Instead, they go on a
they would not make the
28
playoffs
year
again
drought.
until 93.
Oh, because they won in 93.
They went to the World Series that year.
Okay. But
Lost
they didn't win it,
lost
but
to
they didn't win for
Chicago.
another 28
They didn't
after
win again until 2008.
2008, Ryan Howard and the boys.
That team should have been a dynasty.
Yeah, but Ryan Howard just collapsed. So like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah,
But I thought that was a really interesting one.
yeah.
All right. What's your next one?
The obvious. What if there was a 1994 postseason and World Series?
Montreal still has a baseball team.
Definitely, but uh, I definitely think the Expos were definitely the sentimental favorites, but there were some teams like the Yankees and the Braves that definitely could have won it all that year.
Yeah. No, that's without a doubt. I just think that even if they don't, their existence in the playoffs is enough. It's less about them actually winning it, but it's just the reality of they make the playoffs. I mean, you have guys like a Pedro Martinez who at that time was only 22.
Yeah.
You also have you have Moises Alou who's 27, Larry Walker who's 27. Um, the thing is, like, if that team stays around, Marquise Grissom actually had a really good year for them. I'm looking at that 288 batting average. Yeah, no, good for him. Larry Walker just did his thing. Will Cordero, a lot of studs on that team.
Yeah.
Sorry. My point being is that they would find success in those playoffs enough to the point. I don't think they would win it.
Yeah.
Like the Braves and Yankees in those years were just so good.
Or maybe Cleveland burst on a year earlier than they did in real life.
Yeah, not because like the 1994 Indians had a good team as well, right?
Yeah. Reds also had a good team that year.
1994 Indians, Sandy Alomar, Jim Thome, Omar Vizquel, Their pitching core was terrible, so I don't think so. But there's possibilities there. Hey, there was no pitching on that team.
Reds
Best
were
pitcher
also
was best pitcher was Charles Nagy
ugh.
or
Reds were
Eric
also
Plunk. There you go.
ugh. Reds were
But you
also
have
good
Eddie
pitching.
Murray, Albert Bell, Kenny Lofton, Manny Ramirez, Sandy Alomar, Paul Sorrento. So like that team either wins and loses by its hitting. So
Yeah.
um, my point being though is the Expos don't have to win to stay, but they lost all momentum when the '94 season died.
Yeah. But the question is, would Washington D.C. have a team in 2023?
No, because if
I,
I'm a team that's set where I am, I don't think I'm expanding to there. Like I understand them moving there. It's kind of like the NBA and OKC, right?
yeah.
It's a good place to move an already established team to, but it's not a great place to put a team, like it's not a great place to expand a team into.
Okay. Yeah.
The best baseball game, by the way, to happen in Nationals Park every year is the Congressional baseball game.
Ah, good
That's
one.
the highlight of my year is watching that every year. It's absolute comedy.
Ah,
All right. You know what? I'm gonna get the big one off the board just because I want to get that because I feel like there's other ones that haven't been discussed as much and deserve more discussion. But Babe Ruth staying in Boston.
well, what might have been?
So I think there's two major things. The Red Sox become the Yankees and become the face of baseball. They attract all the attention, they attract the stars. And I think, in all honesty, the entire thing just flips.
Well, my opinion thinks my mind says that the Yankees still rise, but not until the DiMaggio era.
Yeah, but what are the Yankees in the DiMaggio era? Because the Yankees aren't the ones with the reputation to garner the star players. It's the Red Sox.
Hmm.
I just think it's the chain reaction that sets the two, like that connects the two and then sets them down their opposite course.
Yeah.
I think the other thing you have to look at is the like Red Sox roster outside of Ruth in 1920.
Oh, they were just one of the worst teams in baseball, if not the worst, by 1925.
1920, they finished fifth in the American League. Their leader in WAR was Harry Hooper, with star pitcher Elmer Myers and Alan Russell.
Mm,
While at the same time, the New York Yankees in 1920 sported a lineup, obviously including Ruth, but outside of Ruth, there wasn't much talent.
Garrett hadn't come up yet,
You
I
had
believe.
you have Del Pratt
Yeah.
and you have Ping Bodie, and your best pitcher is Bob Shockey.
Yeah. And yet they finished third that year.
Yeah. My point being in that is that if Ruth could carry that Yankees team, he could carry that Red Sox team. So that's why I
Oh,
think like the two teams were so comparable besides Ruth that they do that. You have honestly what becomes a Gehrig versus Ruth rivalry.
yeah.
By like 1925, Gehrig versus Ruth is the rivalry that leads the MLB.
Oh, yeah. That would be something.
And the other thing that would you would have to look at also is what other teams um what happens to other teams when that happens.
I I mean the Washington Senators won two pennants in 24 and 25 with Walter Johnson, so they probably still would have been good. the Philadelphia A's had a nice run between 1929 and 1931. But other than that, the 20s were just Yankees, Yankees, and more Yankees.
Yeah. But what about like a St. Louis? Like either one of them, honestly. Like a Cardinals or a Browns, like with a young Rogers Hornsby and like some other star power along the way. Like, can they emerge? Like, can they win a World Series without the intervention of a?
They did win in real life in 1926.
Do they win more without the existence of the Yankees super team?
They might.
It's kind of an interest. It's kind of an interesting dynamic.
Yeah. It's
All right,
definitely, speaking of Babe Ruth, what if Babe Ruth was instead traded to the White Sox in exchange for shoeless Joe Jackson? That was rumored, but it never happened.
Julius Joe Jackson becomes a baseball legend, and Ruth is ostracized for the rest of history.
That's one outcome.
I think, really, unfortunately, it's the only outcome because Ruth was involved in so much scandal. Otherwise, we know he's not stopping the Black Sox incident. In fact, he's probably at the head of it. So instead of just becoming a scapegoat, he's
That
probably the
was
leading man that gets
that
blamed
was
for it.
after the 1919 World Series, I believe.
Exactly. So Ruth gets traded before the season starts in 1919, correct?
Before the 1920 season.
Okay. Shoeless Joe Jackson's reputation is still dead.
Yeah.
Tarnishes
But
the Red Sox, tarnishes the Red Sox organization and the White Sox organization. And Babe Ruth comes in, hypothetically, wins him a World Series, and it becomes the Astros situation where, okay, were they still cheating?
exact it would have definitely been a catch 22 if that happened for both teams.
Yeah, I can't see either team doing that because it's not enough like benefit like or like value gained for either team. But I mean, like I do like the idea, but I just don't think either team would see enough benefit in trading for the other guy as opposed to the one that they already had.
Yeah, and that White Sox team almost won the pennant in 1920.
Yeah, because they went to the World Series.
But
Um, okay. Here's another one. So in the early 90s, Jay Buhner was traded from the New York Yankees to the Seattle Mariners.
I know there's a whole Seinfeld episode about it, according to my parents.
Mm-hmm. So I heard as well when I was doing my research on this. I haven't seen it. We should, let's do that as our homework assignment. We'll both try to go find that episode.
Yeah.
Either way, point being, what happens if Buhner doesn't go? What happens to the baseball in Seattle?
Then I think then I think the Mariners just go to Tampa. I think the Mariners go to Tampa, 98 expansions, Phoenix and DC, and the Expos move to Seattle. It's rocket science.
That wasn't where I was going with it, but now that you say it, it would make sense.
And the Yankees definitely win more World Series in the 90s.
Yeah, without a doubt. Man, that's a wild one. Like the thought of like I don't know. It's just weird to think that Jay Buhner, among all those other stars that existed after the fact, with like a Griffey and a Randy Johnson and an Edgar Martinez, like that they would still be gone. But like it kind of makes sense, unfortunately.
Yeah.
All right, what you got for what do you have for your next one?
Hmm. What if the Yankees won the 2004 ALCS? Definitely one I don't want to think about, but I thought of it.
The Cardinals are still dead.
Yeah, but are the Red Sox still cursed?
No, because there's so much overwhelming talent on those other Red Sox teams in 07, 13, and what 18 too.
Yeah,
There's just so much talent on those other teams that I'm not too concerned about them winning one in one of those other years.
but I have a feeling if not for that collapse, the Yankees might have won another World Series with their team over the
Oh
two.
four, they would have won. Yeah.
04 they would have won. I think they would have won in '06 had they beaten the Tigers, personally. But I think they would have won in '07 had they beaten Cleveland. Just so many missed opportunities.
Yeah, you're looking at a completely different dynasty there.
Possibly, it might be looked at as the greatest dynasty in MLB history.
Yeah,
Possibly in sports.
quite possibly. I don't know. Those '80s Oilers would beg to differ, and I would still side with the '80s Oilers, but still,
I'm still saying 60 Celtics, 11 in 13 years. Beat that.
the competition was terrible.
This isn't a basketball podcast or a hockey podcast.
Also,
Just
but
saying.
let's just for a second, just for the sake of argument, right?
Hmm.
The Oilers won one. Those '80s Oilers won one without Gretzky. In
Yes,
'87 or '88, they
it
won.
was 90 without Gretzky.
Yeah, Messier, Fuhr, and the boys won one
They didn't have
without him.
Grant Fuhr on that 1990 team. He was hurt.
Oh, he was. Who was that goalie on that team?
Bill Ranford.
But still, Messier carried the boys to a cup without Gretzky. That's like, if that doesn't signify dynasty when the best player in hockey leaves,
And
I
you
don't know what
still
does.
win. Yeah.
All right, this one was one that was targeted for Justin, but it's a very moment and game specific one. But what happens if there's no rain delay in the 2016 game in Game 7 of the 2016 World Series?
That is a good one because I do think the Cubs might try to rally, but I think we go to 11th inning because both teams, the Cubs only score one run.
I think honestly, if I'm being completely genuine with this one, I think the Indians win the World Series
Hmm.
because they have every single ounce of momentum after
After that,
Rajay Davis home run.
uh,
Fortunately, the rain dampened all of that. So I think with the gassed arm, I think with the confidence absolutely destroyed of the Cubs, they go trotting on out there. That's I think they get like a guy on second, and then you get the outs, and then you go to the bottom. You go to the bottom of the order, and um I think that they win it.
yeah, they they did score a run in the bottom of the 10th before the Cubs ended up winning, but that's definitely an interesting scenario.
It was a very specific one, and I know that like it's hard, like that one's really hard to like do because it's like with like your expansion one, like there's a lot of different possibilities. With that one, it's like a very, specific moment. But that was one that I was thinking about of like, what if, that's what it's all about, right? That's what we're doing here. So what if?
Yeah,
By the way, Rajay Davis absolutely disappeared after that World Series.
yeah.
That man was never heard from again. I couldn't name a single Rajay Davis moment or if he played on another team or
Biggest
played
one
another
hit,
year in the majors after that.
biggest one hit wonder in World Series history.
Maybe
Hmm.
there's been a lot of them. Howie Kendrick hasn't done anything since that home run in Game 7.
And I mean, heck, even Brett Phillips is still relevant after that hit in Game 4 in 2020.
Well, yeah, but Brett Phillips built a brand around himself to make himself relevant, like his persona, not his on field talent.
Yeah,
I mean, when was the last time you heard anything about Bill Mazeroski that wasn't the World Series winning Grand Slam?
not really. Or anything about Joe Carter after 93.
Like that's the thing we don't realize is that these World Series heroes, like they're never the ones like well, sometimes they are the ones that we expect, but they never like are able to change that in anything else. Bobby Thompson shot her around the world.
Oh,
He didn't do anything else.
David Freese, nah.
Yeah, no, not really. I mean, the thing is, like, it happens all the time, like where like the heroes and like the AL and like the championship series or division series are, you know, still relevant years later, like the Big Poppy Grand Slam against the Tigers in the bottom of the eighth in 2013, right?
Yeah,
Like obviously Big Poppy's a legend. He kept going.
yeah. But
That was
Edgar Ren-
ALCS. It's just
yeah,
like those little things that are interesting.
but the Edgar Renterias, the Luis Gonzalez's, we haven't heard from them since.
Nope, don't care. Couldn't care
Although
less.
Renteria did hit the series-winning home run for the Giants in 2010, 13 years after that, after he won the '97 series for the Marlins. I'll give him
Really, more you know.
that.
Like outside of Miguel, like you probably can, but like even your average MLB fan probably couldn't name like three more people outside of Miguel Cabrera on that '03 Marlins team that beat the Yankees.
Josh Beckett, that's
Yeah,
someone.
exactly. That's it. That's all I got is Miguel Cabrera and Josh Beckett. Outside of that, I couldn't name you a single other guy.
Yeah.
That's just one of those things, like these heroes, these legends, these superstars that just poof, gone, don't matter anymore. It's weird. All right. What's your next one?
Got another somewhat relocation themed one. What if the Seattle Pilots lasted more than 1 year?
They leave a couple years later. The pilots.
Yeah,
There was no support for them when they first came around. Pilots stunk. Seattle was not a baseball market at the time. It just they would have left just a couple years later.
well, I kind of merged it with what if the that 1969 expansion was planned for 1971. It only got pushed back because a senator from Missouri did not want Kansas City to be without a baseball team for so long because the A's had just left for Oakland. And so
Yeah.
it was pushed up. And Seattle had planned to build the old Kingdome for much earlier before it opened in 76. And so maybe if it opens earlier, the Pilots are possibly saved.
Yeah, because the stadium where the pilots played was terrible.
I have been to the site. I have been to the six stadium site, actually. It's now a Lowe's. Spoiler alert.
Really.
There is a batter statue outside in the like parking lot or something.
Like you look at the dimensions of it, it's a weird looking sucker. It looks more like a football stadium.
Yeah.
Well, honestly, I think that's because that is what it is. Like here, let me share a picture with it with everybody of it. That's not a MLB ballpark right there.
Ouch.
It's brutal. It is not it is not ideal dimensions. Let's put it that way. All
Yeah.
right. You have anything else that you want to add on that one?
If that happens in 71, but if it happens in 71, maybe the Pilots are saved. But another what if from that 69 expansion was in night before the 1974 season, the San Diego Padres were close to moving to Washington, D.C. Heck, on 1974 baseball cards, they had Washington instead of San Diego Padres written for the Padres players. But the move was canceled
Why was it canceled? I don't remember this.
because Ray Kroc, McDonald's founder, offered to buy the team and keep it in San Diego, and that's what the MLB did.
Ah, okay. That makes sense.
But if they did move to DC, who knows? Would San Diego have a team now?
The Expos?
Maybe. Maybe.
That'd be a fascinating turn of events of like, well, San Diego still has a team and Washington still has a team and Montreal still doesn't.
That would be ironic,
Be
definitely.
really sad too for, all those peeps and down in or up in the Great White North.
Sorry, Canada.
Can I do another Mariners one?
Go ahead.
So 1996, Mariano Rivera has played about 50, 60 innings and it's like a 3 or 4 ERA. Not great. And the Yankees thought they had this prospect shortstop they thought was going to pan out into something, but he has sucked in spring training. That little guy's name was Derek Jeter, by the way. Um, so Derek Jeter isn't panning out, and they think, all right, if we're gonna do something, let's get a relatively good, reliable shortstop. The Mariners had Felix Fermin at the time. Okay. And they were like, let's trade this middling reliever we got called Mariano. What's that guy's name? Rivera? Yeah, that guy. We'll send him over. That was a deal that was discussed between the Mariners and Yankees. So we get a guy that doesn't mean anything in baseball lore for the into the 1996, and say Rivera becomes what he does like by 2001, right? Let's just look at just isolate right. Rivera's um 2001 season. Do you want to know what Rivera's stats that were in his 2001 season? You ready for this?
Tell me.
50 saves. I would say that was a pretty good year. I would argue.
Oh yeah.
192 ERA plus, 2.28 FIP, zero point 0.9 WHIP. I would argue that was pretty darn good. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I would say, I would say that was pretty good.
Yeah.
What happens if he's on that on that 2001 Mariners team?
Then they go. Then they win at least 100. Then they win at least 8 more games. Then that would
Plus,
be.
what does that Yankees team look like in 2001 if they have a Felix Fermin instead of Derek Jeter?
Then I don't even think they make the playoffs.
Because Jeter would probably get traded at that point because he's a struggling shortstop who was supposed to be this great guy. Like they could probably get some decent value for.
Then I actually saw a video not too long back about what if Derek Jeter was drafted by the Reds instead of the Yankees.
That'd be fun. Do you know who their star player would be if Jeter was on that team?
Who?
Just throw out a name.
Uh, Bernie Williams.
It would be Bernie Williams. You would also have Mike Mussina and an already old Roger Clemens. My goodness, that guy was just eternally old.
Not to mention Jorge Posada was still pretty good.
Yeah. Um, Roger Clemens just was old his entire career, wasn't he?
Yeah,
Like, tell me I'm wrong, but like that's what it feels like. He was just old his entire career.
I'm. Yeah,
But I just think that provides so many interesting opportunities. Like, what was the 2001 World Series? Then it was the Diamondbacks, right? That was the
Diamondbacks over Yankees. Greatest World Series of all time. I'm just gonna say it.
For the sake of argument, it's the Mariners and the Diamondbacks.
I've always said the Diamondbacks would win if they had their same as real life rosters, but with that, it's tough.
It's tough, especially for the main reason of think about who was the closer for the Yankees in Game 7.
Rivera.
Think about who the walk-off was hit off of. History doesn't change if it's the Mariners.
Yeah.
Let's say it comes out of that exact scenario. They're still calling on the same reliever. It's a wild scenario. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. But I do think the Mariners would definitely win the World Series in 2000. That year they got to the ALCS and got beat by the Yankees.
Yeah, because they demolished the Indians because the 01 Indians were not that good yet. They still need a couple of years.
I'm on 2000. I thought if Rivera and Jeter were Mariners, they'd win in 2000, no doubt, because the 2000 Mariners were already pretty good. They had
Yeah,
Alex Rodriguez on that team as well.
yeah. I don't think Jeter becomes a Mariner. I just think that Jeter isn't a Yankee. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Where would Jeter go? Okay, let's go back. It's 1996. What team would you trade a young Derek Jeter to? Like
What teams
what team do you think would trade for him?
what teams would be in need of a shortstop that have some good pieces already? Definitely wouldn't have been the Red Sox, as much as I don't want to say.
Yeah.
Imagine Jeter as a Red Sox. You can't, right?
No, here's an interesting one.
Yeah.
The Rockies.
Hmm.
Do you know who our shortstop was in '96? It was Walt Weiss.
Never heard of him.
He was a manager.
Hmm.
Um,
Well, Jeter's lifelong dream was to play for the Yankees, so
yeah,
maybe
he wanted to be a Yankee his entire time.
maybe the Tigers since he's originally from Michigan.
Say that again.
Tigers, he grew up in Michigan.
Well, let's look at the '96 Tigers. Who do they have? Who's the shortstop on that team? It's Andujar Cedeno, who hit 196 that season.
So I don't
I
think
think they
much.
feel pretty good about that.
Yeah.
The team still is going to stink, so I don't, I think he would have left pretty fast.
Another potential interesting one, the Giants.
Yeah. What does that do for the eventual Giants dynasty that we see in like the early 2010s if they don't get the picks because they don't stink? It's a
Yeah.
very interesting scenario.
Who was the 96 Giants shortstop?
Give me a second.
But Jeter and Bonds on the same team.
1996 Giants managed by who's the manager of the
Who?
team?
I don't know.
Dusty Baker.
Oh.
Man, this team was terrible.
And yet they won the division in
Rich Aurelia
97.
Aurelia.
Yeah, they went from worst to first in 1 year.
Yeah, in '97, like simply because Barry Bonds was absolutely juicing. No, this was pre-juice Bonds. He only hit 40 home runs. Was pre-juice Bonds. But no, what? Why was this team good? Next best hitter was JT Snow. Best pitcher was Sean Estes. Estes. Rod Beck was the closer with 37 saves. Like that's good, but what? That's really weird.
Another
I don't.
potential destination for Jeter could be the Mets, staying in New York. I mean, the Mets were starting to get good around 97 or 98, I believe.
Yeah, the
With the
shortstop is Roy Ordonez,
yeah.
but joining like a Jeff Kent, that team stinks too. Mark Clark is the star pitcher.
Mm,
John Franco is the closer. Who actually had a really good season that year.
mm,
He just didn't play enough that year.
mm, mm.
But
I'm
yeah, that Mets team stunk.
trying to think playoff contenders. Cardinals?
They finished first in the NL Central that year. They lost 4-3 to the Braves.
They were up 3-1 in that series.
Really?
Yeah.
Um, Shortstop Royce Clayton, 277 batting average, 80 or let's see, batting OPS plus of 83.
But that
Six
leads
home
into,
runs, 35 ribbies. Yeah, no, you could easily say that team goes see some crazy improvement.
but wonder if Pujols still ends up in St. Louis if that happens.
Pujols was an international signing though, wasn't he?
Oh, right.
So that's not a concern, but it's more like a Wayno.
Yeah.
Wainwright doesn't come to town.
Oh no.
No, wait, because Wayno wasn't their pick originally, was he?
I don't know.
I think Adam Wainwright is a Cardinal to begin with.
Yeah.
Or not no, let's see. No, he was a Diamondback? Maybe. I don't know. No, he was a Brave. Okay, I was right. It was a trade. He was a Brave. He was drafted by the Braves
Hmm.
because he was a Georgia kid.
Yeah.
So here's okay. Let me just draw this up for you here, right? He was selected 29th overall using a compensatory pick from the Diamondbacks for signing Russ Springer. Okay.
Hmm.
Um, you ready for the trade that got him into St. Louis? You ready for this?
Tell me.
He was Jason Marquise, and Ray King were acquired for JD Drew and Eli Marrero.
Whew.
And that was such an oy, ow, ouch.
Yeah.
That's brutal. If you're the Braves, that's awful, considering probably the other prospects that were to be had in 2002 by the Cardinals.
Yeah.
Out of everybody you could have gotten, that's rough.
Hmm. Back to what we were doing, though. Here's another what if. What if A-Rod signed with the Red Sox instead of the Yankees in 2004? Or trade was traded to the what if the trade with the Red Sox went through?
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty easy, right? I feel like that one's a pretty easy one.
Red
The
Sox,
ALCS isn't as nearly as close as it is.
yeah, Red Sox still
It's like a
probably,
4-1 Red Sox win.
yeah,
Then it's an even easier sweep in the World Series against the Cardinals.
yeah.
What was that
And
trade for, though? I guess is the one question that I guess we're kind of overlooking with that one.
I think Alfonso Soriano was in that package the Yankees sent to Texas. I know that.
Do we know what Boston was sending in a
I
hypothetical
honestly
trade?
don't know.
So I feel like that's kind of the missing part of it because like we don't know what value Boston was gonna get back because if they were gonna get something crazy back, or or if Texas was gonna get something crazy in return, who knows what Texas does with that contract offloaded?
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking like a Nelson Cruz and a Miguel Cabrera, maybe, if he doesn't go to Detroit.
Hmm. Maybe the Rangers have that dynasty in the early 2010s instead of the Giants.
Yeah, maybe they beat the Cardinals.
Yeah,
And what year was that? 11?
2011.
Yeah. All right. I got my last one.
Okay.
What happens if Barry Bonds becomes an Atlanta Brave in 1992?
He was almost a Brave.
1992, he was almost a Brave. Actually, he was almost two different things. He was almost a Yankee too that same season.
I thought he was. Apparently, there was also. He almost went to the Dodgers as well, believe it
Yeah,
or not.
everybody wanted Bonds because even before the juice, he was great.
Yeah.
But the deal was Barry Bonds. I'm sorry, I'm reading it off here on my phone. Barry Bonds for Alejandro Pena and Keith Mitchell.
That's what Atlanta offered. Then
I
I
want you
definitely.
to just think about this. Just think about this. Tell me that that would not be the one of the greatest teams of all time with absolute juice to Barry Bond. Oh, he didn't really juice until the 2000s, but Barry Bonds alongside Glavine, Maddox, and Smoltz,
Then that team easily.
as
Then
well
that
as
team.
Chipper and Andrew Jones.
Yeah.
They easily win in '98
They easily win it in '93, I think, too. And '96,
and
maybe '97.
maybe '94 if the like. There are so many possibilities here of Barry Bonds who would absolutely demolish the national. I mean, like he would just. It's not even fair. But yeah, he was like 15 minutes from becoming a New York Yankee too.
Hmm.
They
And
offered him
was.
a they offered him a deal that was similar to the deal that George Brett got.
Hmm.
I think it was. I think that's who the player was. Um, and he was 15 minutes from getting that when the jump so they went out to lunch, right? I'm trying to remember the exact story, but they go out to lunch, and then over the course of lunch, they offer him the deal. And like he says, like, I'll get back to you in a bit. And like one conversation is struck up between the Giants and him, and they offer him a big more money, and he goes to San Francisco, and doesn't win jack, but
Yeah. And apparently, Tommy was sort of recruited him hard to join the Dodgers as well.
Well, yeah, I think pretty much everybody was.
Yeah, but if
If you have the
Bonds were
money.
if Bonds were a Dodger, I think his career would probably be wasted because those Dodgers teams were really nothing special.
Yeah. The Mariners wouldn't get him. They just didn't have the money for him.
The Rockies were brand new, so
Yeah, they wouldn't have
the
touched
Red
him.
the Red Sox, probably not.
The Cubs might have.
That's an interesting possibility and one that
The Pirates wouldn't have done. The Pirates wouldn't have traded him. Maybe if he like signed the deal in the 92 93 off season, maybe. But the Pirates wouldn't have dealt him
no.
because the division they're giving their best player their division rival. It would have to be an insanely good package.
Hmm. Yeah,
Um, I don't have anything else. Do you have any other ones that you want to share with us before we head out?
nothing really. Would you like to just talk just us two after we're done recording or something?
Sure. All right.
Okay.
Trying to think of any other one if I have any other ones. Nolan Ryan doesn't leave the Mets
Then that team easily wins another World Series or two.
before 86. Yeah.
Before maybe they win in '73, in reality they lost in '7 that year.
To
Oakland.
yeah, they're still losing to Oakland.
Yeah.
You have to remember Nolan Ryan was not a great postseason pitcher.
Yeah.
He was pretty good in the postseason, but he was nothing, he wasn't Nolan Ryan.
And
I don't know. I still maintain the assertion that Madison Bumgarner is the greatest postseason pitcher in MLB history.
I'd say it's either him or Bob Gibson.
Yeah, Bob Gibson went crazy when it came. I mean, Bob Gibson was good in the regular season, but he became Bob Gibson when it came playoff time.
Could also toss Kurt Schilling in there.
Yeah. Roger Clemens? Maybe.
Andy Pettit.
We start naming off New York Yankees pitchers.
Yeah,
It's kind of an unorthodox way to look at it, but Rivera,
maybe.
that guy was unstoppable when it came to playoff time.
Yeah. And different different
Except for the
different one.
2001 World Series Game 7.
And 2004 ALCS games 4 and 5.
Oh, yeah.
Another one that I talked one relating to my first one. What if the St. Louis Browns moved to Los Angeles before the 1942 season? They were all set to do it before Pearl Harbor happened, and then they changed their mind.
It becomes almost a scenario of what if Pearl Harbor doesn't happen? And which is a whole nother debate for a whole completely different podcast that, I think you and I could have our own, 90-minute debate on the historical implications just for baseball alone if Pearl Harbor doesn't happen.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine Ted Williams' career.
Then he would be the greatest hitter of all time.
Yeah, tell me that Ted Williams wouldn't be the greatest baseball player of all time if World War II doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Ignoring everything else because, like the geopolitical consequences is way too deep for me to want to get into right now.
Oh
So
yeah.
just leave it be. And unless you have anything else that you want to, any other points or anything, what ifs you want to bring up?
Nothing really.
All right. I think we're good. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank you all so much for watching. As always, Eli, thank you for coming on.
Anytime.
And if you have any responses to these what ifs, feel free to message us on Instagram at Cards and Talk.
Or comment down
Or
below if you're on YouTube.
yeah, or comment down below on YouTube. Just tell us what you think. Are we crazy? Is there anything that we missed in analyzing any scenarios, or any other scenarios that you think we missed that would have been completely game changing for the league? Let us know. And thank you so much. We will see you all next week. Peace.